Morning, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday devotional. We've been looking at Matthew 24 and 25. And so we continue in chapter 25 this morning. And the chapter is kind of divided into three pieces. We have the parable of the virgins, which is a parable talking about those who are ready for the return of Christ. Those are believers. And those who are not ready, non-believers. Then secondly, is the parable of the talents, which isn't like a talent like singing or dancing or playing an instrument, has having to do with managing finances. As the estate of the master, he leaves some money to three people to see how they do with those, if they invest the money and so on. So just keep that in mind. And then, of course, the final section is the final judgment, which is 31 through 46. But let's read the parable of the talents, or some people say it's an awkward name, but it says, starting in verse 14, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. So property, not song and dance. One was given 5 talents, another 2, another 1, each according to their ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded them and made 5 talents more. So also the one with 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who received the 1 talent dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. He who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more. His master said, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also had the one with 2 talents who came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed, and you ought to then have invested the money with bankers. And at my coming I should have received what was mine with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast a worthless servant into outer darkness, in the place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The word of the Lord. Now again, there's 3 sections to Matthew 25. The parable of the virgins is talking about those who are believers, those who are not. Believe it or not, this section, the parable of talents, is for believers. Being cast out into darkness is not a reference to losing your salvation and going into hell having been a believer with a talent. It is a reference of experiencing. And believe me, I researched this. All the commentators agree that this refers to someone who has now met with the displeasure of the master. And that was in Eastern tradition. If you displeased your master, you would be removed from his presence for a time. But this is not a reference of eternal punishment. This person just loses their reward, so to speak. Which, by the way, ties in well with 1 Corinthians 3 that talks about how you invest the gifts and abilities also that God has given you, and talks about some will have works of gold and silver and precious stones, some wood, hay, and stubble. The wood, hay, and stubble will be burned, but it says those people will still be saved. I think that would be a good parallel, 1 Corinthians chapter 3. So essentially what we have here in the parable of the talents is this is the judgment seat of Christ, would be another parallel. So the judgment of believers on what they have done since obtaining salvation through Christ. Do they serve him And do they use the abilities that God has given, the spiritual gifts, the fruits of the Spirit noted in Galatians? Do they use those, or do they not use them? Will they experience the praise of their master, the Lord, when they appear before him, or will they be reprimanded because they did not use what God had given them? That's what this parable is about. And so it's not meant to discourage us. It's meant to encourage us. It's meant to cause us to think, what have I been doing for Christ? What am I doing for the Lord? How am I serving in my local church? How am I sharing the gospel with loved ones, family, friends, coworkers, people who do not know the Lord? What am I doing for him? And if we do well, we will be rewarded. We will receive various praise from the Master. And we see this in many places in the New Testament. But if we do not, we will be reprimanded for not having done or served using our abilities for the kingdom of God. So a lot to think about in this parable. Next week we'll finish Matthew 25, and we'll talk certainly about the sheep and the goats and final judgment and so on. Remind you, the men's breakfast is this Saturday at 8 o'clock. So men, please come if you're able to. I'll send an email later today as a reminder. Also, of course, Sunday 9:30, traditional worship, 11 o'clock, our contemporary service, also at Children's Chapel. I would just, it's good to see all of you, so to speak, and look forward to face-to-face coming this weekend. God bless you and have a great day. Bye now.